Good morning. The meeting will now come to order. Welcome to this meeting of the Charlotte Unified Development Board of Adjustment on Tuesday, July 29th, 2025. My name is Deborah Dryden, and I am chair of the board. Would the board members please go around and state their name for the record? Marshall.
Marshall Williamson.
Kevin Shea.
Deborah Dryden.
Son.
Also present are Solomon Fortune, our zoning administrator, John Kinley, the senior project manager, Crystal Monsegur, our planner, Kamisha Lampley, clerk to the board, Teree Hagler Gray, who's senior assistant city attorney and advisor to the planning staff, Jill Sanchez Myers, our senior assistant city attorney and advisor to the board, and Paige Inman, our new assistant city attorney. Welcome, Paige. And Elizabeth Majors is our Veritex court reporter today. Each of today's hearings is a quasi-judicial evidentiary hearing. That means it is like a court hearing. State law sets specific procedures and rules concerning how this board must make its decision. These rules are different from other types of land use decisions like rezoning cases. The board's discretion is limited. The board must base its decision upon competent, relevant, and substantial evidence in the record. A quasi-judicial decision is not a popularity contest. It is a decision constrained by the standards in the ordinance and based on the facts presented. If you'll be speaking as a witness, please focus on the facts and ordinance standards, not personal preference or opinion. General witness testimony is limited to facts. For certain topics, this board needs to hear opinion testimony from expert witnesses. These topics include projections about impacts on property values and projections about impacts of increased traffic. Individuals providing expert opinion must be qualified as experts and provide the factual evidence upon which they base their expert opinion. While hearsay evidence is not specifically excluded, it is only given limited weight. Parties with standing have rights to participate fully. Parties may present evidence, call witnesses, and make legal arguments. Parties are limited to the applicant, a city, and the individuals who can show they will suffer specific damages or special damages, Other individuals may provide testimony as witnesses when recognized by the board. Witnesses must swear or affirm their testimony. Any individual wishing to speak as a witness today was required to sign up. If you haven't done so, please do so now. The parties to each case are entitled to an impartial decision maker. A board member may not participate in a hearing if they have a fixed opinion about the matter, a financial interest in the outcome of the matter, or a close familial, business, or associational relationship with an affected person. The parties to each case also have a right to any ex parte communication to be disclosed. Ex parte communication is any communication about the case outside of the hearing that may include site visits as well as conversations with parties or the general public. At the start of each case, any potential conflict of interest or ex parte communication should be disclosed by a board member if applicable. These matters may also be raised by any affected party. Today's meeting will follow the order printed on the agenda. All parties who plan to give testimony must be sworn in. A staff member will present a summary of the case. The board may question the staff member, and then the applicant may question the staff member. The applicant presents their testimony for the case, and any sworn witnesses provide testimony. The board and city staff may question the applicant and their witnesses. Other parties wishing to speak for or against a case will be given reasonable time to present sworn testimony. The staff and then the applicant will be given an opportunity for rebuttal. After hearing each case, the board will review each case and render a decision. This is usually done in closed deliberations after hearing each case. The chairperson calls for a motion and a second to approve or deny the variance or appeal. The decision will be made by a simple majority vote of the board. However, the board may elect to take up to 30 days to render a decision. You may remain present during the deliberations, or you may call the zoning staff after the session to receive the decision of the board. If you wish to receive a written copy of the decision letter, please indicate so on the sign-in sheet. All exhibits must remain with the board. If your case is not appealed to Superior Court after 30 days, you may pick them up or they will be destroyed. Appeal from this board is to the Mecklenburg County Superior Court. You have 30 days from the date of the board's written decision in which to appeal in accordance with NCGS 160D-405D. Okay. Those of you, the board, if you would stand to Mr. Fortune and Mr. Kinley and Ms. Montague. Okay. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the evidence you shall give to the board in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you very much. All right, we now open this hearing for variance number 2025-00029. The property is located at 3305 South Boulevard. Before we begin, does any board member have a conflict of interest or potential conflict or any ex parte communication they need to disclose? Okay, good deal. All right. Okay, Mr. Kinley, you may begin.
Okay. So we just have the one item on the agenda today, on the recommendation agenda. There's no one signed up to speak in opposition. And no one here in the audience is here in opposition either. So just do a staff presentation, and if you have questions that we can't answer as staff, then we can open it up to a full hearing to let the applicants speak as well if we need to. It's a variance for Charlotte Loso LLC, represented by Sarah Beeson of Alexander Ricks, for a property at 3305 parcel 147051111, owned by CHMF BTH3 of Charlotte Loso LLC. And the variance request is from the Legacy Zoning Ordinance, section 15.9K, number 2, which basically says that any above ground utility structures have to be outside of your required setback. And the variance request is to allow 3 of those above ground boxes in the required setback, 2 along Hartford Avenue and 1 along South Boulevard. Exhibit 1 is a vicinity map of the property. It's at the corner of Hartford and South Boulevard near Clanton Road. This is a zoning map of the property on Exhibit 2. Current zoning is TOD-UC for the front portion of the property facing South Boulevard, and TOD-NC for the rear along Weston and Hartford. This is the aerial map of the property. The building that's been constructed there, it's a multifamily building, and it's pretty much finished with construction. This issue came up with some of the final inspections that were being done. So the building is there and pretty much looks like that now, aside from a lot of the construction materials around the building.
Show me where they want to put the boxes.
So the boxes are actually already present, but there's 2 approximately here, and then the 1 is right around in here, and we do have some other images of that. And that's Exhibit 3 on the aerial map. Exhibit 4 is the variance request. Again, it's a variance request from the Legacy Ordinance, section 15.9K, number 2. And it reads, all above ground accessory and utility structures associated with electric, natural gas, water, wastewater, stormwater, sewer, telecommunications, or cable television shall be located behind the required setback, except allowed as in any city right-of-way ordinances, includes air vents, vaults, and backflow preventers. So again, there have 2 of their, I think, junction boxes that are 2 on Hartford Avenue and then 1 on South Boulevard. There are 3 conditions that the applicant has agreed to, and I'll go over these again a little bit later. I'm not going to read through them all in detail, but basically condition number 1 says that they'll install the junction box enclosure for screening the box that's along South Boulevard frontage. And there's an enlargement plan that we'll look at in a bit that shows the detail for that. And then condition 2 is that they'll provide a supplemental planting area around the south side of the enclosure on South Boulevard, as shown on the enlargement plans, which we'll look at here in a minute as well. And then install some screen shrubs along Hartford Avenue on either side of the junction boxes and between the junction box and the curb of Hartford Avenue on enlargement plan B. And then the third condition is that the variance only applies to these 3 junction boxes or above ground utility boxes for their current locations, and their replacement or repair if they're damaged or destroyed. And in the event that the building is demolished outside of destruction of, damage by a fire, flood, or another act of God, then the site, would be redeveloped, and then that variance would become null and void. So here's a survey, Exhibit 5, showing the location of these boxes. Here is the one on South Boulevard, the 2 on Hartford, and closer to the corner of Weston Street. And then here's a survey detail, Exhibit 6, the green dashed line indicating the required setback line along South Boulevard, 24 feet from the future back of curb, and then the setback along Hartford, 16 feet from the future back of curb as well. And again, these 2 are in the planting strip between the sidewalk and the street. And then this one is behind the sidewalk, but it is just over the setback line, that 24-foot setback line. So this is the utility plan that was provided during land development review. Utility plan reviewed by city staff didn't include the exact locations of those electrical utility boxes. And so, city staff didn't see them. Duke did review and approve the plans, and when the plans that they approved during before construction began showed the junction boxes being in the correct location outside of the required setback. So they were compliant with zoning when they started construction. So this site is also a brownfield, a designated brownfield, and this is information from the Register of Deeds, just confirming that this is a brownfields property. And basically, because it's a brownfield property, there are restrictions on digging on the site and requirements to put things like electrical wiring and plumbing and sort of thing into conduit. And there's also restrictions on how much digging you can do for those facilities as well.
John, a logical question here. This application, did we get everything that Kamisha sent to us? Was that the entire application?
I'm not sure if everything was in there. I mean, we sent the packet that had all the exhibits and
It
stuff.
was horrendous. It had no information. My first reaction was, why don't they just bury the boxes? This is the first time I've heard that this is a brownfield.
Okay.
So the application was lacking horribly. And I'm curious to know if that was an issue that we just didn't get it all together here, or was the applicant that didn't do the information?
No, we did get the brownfield application, the brownfields designation as part of their application. So we just may have missed putting it in the packet that we sent.
All I saw was the front page, which had looks like the Excel printout, and then two diagrams basically of the site.
Okay.
Site plans.
Yeah.
It would be very helpful.
Some of that supporting documentation may not have made it into the packet, it sounds.
Yeah, for me, for the future, I would very much like all of this information before we sit down.
Sure.
Thank you.
So because the requirements that Duke has, so this is an email that they got from Duke Energy. Unfortunately, a Duke representative isn't here to be an expert witness to this, but basically basically what this is saying, and I'm not going to read it all this fine print out, but essentially there's a limitation on the number of 90-degree turns you can have in conduit when you're running wire through conduit. And that's because they won't slacken the line to be able, when they pull, you have to make repairs to the electrical line, that they're going to have to pull it. And if they pull it, they could end up breaking the line if there's more than, I think, one 90-degree turn in your conduit. So basically, this is saying what that requirement is. And because of the original locations of the electrical boxes, there were going to end up being more 90-degree turns than what Duke allowed. So they ended up having to put those electrical boxes in a location in the setback. And that was determined after construction had almost been completed. A Duke representative and inspector came out to the site and told them where they needed to put those electrical boxes. And so that's why they put those then in those outside of the setback or in the setback whenever that Duke inspector came around. And then whenever our inspector came out to do the final inspections for zoning, our inspector noticed that those were now in violation of what the zoning ordinance required. So here's the junction boxes in street view or images from the street. These two images are the same cabinet along South Boulevard. This is the corner of Hartford Avenue and South. And then this is Hartford Avenue and Weston, and these are the two boxes in the planting strip.
And that's all the planting they're gonna do in front of these boxes?
No, there'll be, so in the next slides, I'll show you what they're proposing to do as the conditions for additional screening. And that's exhibit 11 showing the existing conditions. So exhibit 12 is the proposed screening and conditions of the variance. First being constructing an enclosure around the box on South Boulevard. And it would be basically decorative panels type, a low screen wall type situation that then would have a little gate access for them to get out in there and do maintenance to it. But because of that, a lot of the plantings around that junction box will have to be relocated. So they're creating a supplemental planting area where the excess plants from around the junction box would be relocated, and then a supplemental planting area where they'll put excess plants and additional plants to the south of that junction box. And then there's the enclosure here in junction box, and this is the supplemental planting area here at the corner of the building. So that would be essentially in this area here, and then the enclosure box would be there. And then along Hartford, they're adding the screening shrubs here and here to help screen those two boxes from the street. And if we go back to our street view here, so those screen shrubs would be somewhere in this location, generally speaking.
John, I've never heard of this. What did you call it? A brownfield?
Brownfield.
Included site.
So
I
this
don't know what that
site,
is.
this site was previously developed with I think it was a dry cleaners or some sort of laundromat. And a lot of times older laundromats, before there were regulations in place, they would dump things like their soap and laundry detergent and things like that into the ground. And so that contaminates the soil. You can build on it, but you have to take extra precautions as part of this brownfield program to be able to develop a site that has that contamination on it.
Okay. Thank you.
Exhibit 13 is the variance criteria. This is pulled from the legacy zoning ordinance, but it reads pretty much the same as what we have in the UDO that you're very familiar with. And all four of these standards and criteria have to be met in order for the board to approve a variance. Exhibit 14 will go into considerations and findings of fact. If you want to take a moment to look over those, and then I can go through each item.
Did that on here. Oh, it was an old airport. And when they built there, so I'm assuming they cleaned it up. I didn't know about the digging part.
So if the board members have any questions or discussion, you can speak so that everyone can hear you. Please.
He was just clarifying what the brown,
Field.
what it was for me. And what I said to him was that I think there's a site that's on Harris Boulevard that was an old airfield that they've redeveloped. And so, I mean, I haven't looked at it, but I know they had to clean up the land before they could build. That's all I was saying. That made sense to me once you explained to me what a brownfield site was. Then I think I knew what it was. I just didn't know what it was called. I apologize.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
You ready?
Yeah.
So unnecessary hardship would result from the strict application of the ordinance. The construction on the site was substantially completed in accordance with the approved development plans and permits at the time that Duke did a site inspection. In compliance with the strict application of the ordinance would result in undue hardship requiring significant changes to the site construction, including the way in which electrical services ran throughout the site. Hardship does result from the conditions that are peculiar to the property. Because the Duke requirements applied to the property after the approval of the land development plans and after construction had commenced and was nearly completed, the configuration of the property and building frontages on South Boulevard, Hartford Avenue, and Weston Street, and the restrictions on the property as a brownfield site limit the amount of area available between the building and setback for any above-ground utility structures and underground installment of such improvements. Because we did, Mr. Shea, you mentioned burying the boxes. We did look into asking them if they could bury it, but again, because of the brownfield designation, they couldn't do that digging. And also the ordinance also says that it applies, if you read through the language of it does say this includes air vents, vaults, and backflow preventers. So if even if they buried it, they would still need a variance to the requirements. The site is designated brownfield site for which prevents the applicant from burying the utility boxes in a vault. Hardship does not result from actions that are taken by the applicant. The applicant relied upon the approved plans by the city and Duke, and it was not until Duke's site visit or inspection after the building was substantially completed that the applicant became aware of the approved utility box locations outside of the setback would not comply with Duke requirements. And therefore hardship results from the Duke requirements building and building constraints on the property as shown on the plans and the restrictions of the property as a brownfield site. That's exhibit 15's considerations. And then last one, 16, the requested variance. The requested variance is consistent with the spirit and purpose and intent of the ordinance in that public safety is secured and substantial justice is achieved. The requested variances would allow for reasonable accommodation for the applicant to comply with Duke requirements in light of the constraints. The applicant has offered the conditions that we went over before. Again, those are installing a junction box enclosure around the box on South Boulevard as according to the plan enlargement and junction box enclosure detail. They're going to provide supplemental plantings combined with additional plantings and plantings that have been transplanted as a result of the work on the junction box enclosure to the area south of the enclosure or the cabinet on South Boulevard, and then additional screen plantings around the boxes on Hartford Avenue. And then the variance only applies to these 3 above ground utility boxes. And the last 2 bullets or 3 bullets, if the variance is granted, the placement of the utility boxes would not substantially detract from the character of the neighborhood. Utility boxes are located in the planting strip or between the back of curb and sidewalk, and they're outside of the sidewalk, leaving a sidewalk clear for pedestrian circulation. And the approval of the variances would permit utility boxes to remain in their current location in compliance with the Duke requirements and promotes public safety and not harm the public. And last slide, oops, is exhibit 17, just a photo of our sign, notification sign at the corner of the building. And that concludes our presentation. I'll take any questions if you have any.
Can the staff is satisfied with the screening plan?
Yes.
Any other questions for staff?
I want something.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, Mr. Fortune.
I want to say, Mr. Shea, we'll take care of that. We apologize and we'll do anything to make sure we get information for you guys. Just to let you guys know, so the way, again, if you guys approve the variance, which staff is recommending, staff has set up process with Duke Energy to make sure that to kind of cut down this from happening again. Because what has happened is, as we've talked to Duke, we've said, when we've got these urban setbacks, I said in the suburban areas, it's not such a big deal because, hey, I've got this large setback. You can move a transformer anywhere for a McDonald's, such place, single family home, and you're moving that transformer anywhere. But we've said, hey, in these urban places, when you've got this 14-foot setback anywhere between there, and once you've told them they can put these transformers or whatever these utilities are, and now you come back after the point after they've been through land development and move them, we've said that causes a problem for us because when I was speaking to Duke, I said, I don't know who to believe. Do I believe the developer or do I believe you? And so we are on a team. We set it up that way, again, It won't be perfect, but we are setting it up where Duke and Duke understands, because Duke has also brought some issues to us, saying, because we're now becoming an urban city, some of the things where they have to do business is gonna have to change. And we're all working together. We're on a team. We meet once a month. We have some, it's a pilot program where we are hoping that Duke gets those plans a lot sooner. And then the Duke can come out there and say that, because as John mentioned in his presentation, that is correct about the bins. And then there was also some ideas we had about maybe screening the utilities with wrap, but then Duke also said there's a problem with that, because as they're like, it is electricity. There are safety things and hazards warnings they put on there, and they're worried if the box gets wrapped with something, someone won't see that, and they're like, it's a liability to them. So we are looking at all options. Again, we hope that this is just one of those one-offs where, hey, like I said, the inspector, our zoning inspector went out there and the building was already almost at. They were looking to get COs and say, hey, start going through those checklists to occupy the building. And then this is when we found it. And again, we spoke to Duke. I did directly saying, I just need to know to make sure it's where did we get lost in the product. So we are working on that. Hopefully that you won't see too many more of these going on in the future. But this was one that was already approved and under the old code, and they had already started construction. So we felt comfortable with the our recommendation, and then we felt comfortable with the conditions that the applicant made. And that's all I have. Thank you.
And the condition that if this is torn down, they can't put the boxes back in that spot.
That's
Right.
correct. That's one. And then obviously all the screening requirements, because again, some of that stuff would be in right away. And we've worked that out.
Okay, cool. Well, I appreciate you dealing with Duke, because that was going to be my question, how did Duke miss this when we started this? If they knew it was a brownfield site, what happened? But you've answered that question, that you are closing
Being
that
fair to
gap.
Duke, I think being the size of company they are, just like government, sometimes one hand doesn't know what the other hand is doing. And I think what happens is the design team goes to one guy and says, this is gonna work. And then the guy who actually goes to the field and installs, it's like, oh, this ain't gonna work.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like we have that problem with
Right.
some things where when we're talking to Duke, it's the higher ups in Duke or look at and say, we work with you. And then the guy who actually in the field who's got to do the work and install it and says, I've got to service this, and realizes this ideal just isn't going to work. And we've had that, I think, on another one where I believe it was like a gas and water heater. One of the buildings, Lincoln Harris might have owned someone, where they got told they could put it in the building. And then at the last minute, it was, you got to move it out. And then it just throws because again, I've not
Right.
accounted for when I designed it. I thought it was going to be screened it was going to be in the building. So it meets our screening requirements. So we're just working on with that with Duke to say, hey, it's to cut down on those.
I get
Especially in
it.
the urban
I
areas.
appreciate that you're doing that. I mean, we're trying to close the gaps. That's what I've noticed in since the UDO, we're trying to fix these little quirks. And get them done before the people have to come to us and say, please give me a variance, because you can't say tear down your building, and I
Yeah.
guess you could, but that would be ridiculous. Okay,
Quick question, Deborah.
Yes.
Would the way this is gonna be now, would this be acceptable under the new UDOs?
So without the variance, we would say no, because we still have that same requirement that.
So that requirement's the
Still
same.
the same, yes.
Okay.
any other questions for staff? Okay, let's go into deliberations. We have.
Before we do that, I
Yes,
just want to ask Jill, did we have to qualify the fact that there were 4 of us here and the applicant had the ability to say they could postpone until we have 5 people here? Did that all get taken care of?
That's a great question. Was that discussed with the applicant beforehand?
I'm gonna say no, and I think last time, to be consistent, I think we did. That's how we got in trouble. Whatever. That's shell shocking us. I guess we do need to verify that, because I don't believe we have, and they would have that.
Yeah, thank you. So just from the procedural standpoint, since there are only 4 board members instead of 5, we included in our rules of procedure that the applicant has the right to ask for continuance until a full panel can be present. This matter is on the recommendation agenda. So, but we would like to clarify with the applicant, if you could, is that you? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. We're fine with Steve.
Okay, thank you. Thanks so much.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, Mr. Shea. Okay. All right, comments from the board as we deliberate, or do I have a motion?
I'd make a motion to approve.
Mr. Shea made a motion to approve. Do I hear a second?
And I'm sorry, Mr. Shea, is that approved with the conditions?
I'm sorry, I make a motion to approve with the conditions outlined by staff.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Sounds second.
Ms. Sun, second. Okay, Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
Mr. Shea,
Say yes.
Ms. Sun,
Yes.
Dryden, yes. So the, excuse me, the variance is approved with the conditions as noted in our, by the staff. All right, now we need to approve the conclusions of law, and do I hear a motion? Think there was any changes?
Williamson, motion to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Williamson. Do I hear a second?
Just for clarification, the board is reviewing the proposed findings of facts.
Finding of facts and conclusions of law.
And Mr. Williamson, that your motion covers the findings of facts as well and conclusions of law.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, do I hear a second?
1 second.
All right, Ms. Sun seconds. Okay, Mr. Williamson,
Williamson, yes.
Mr. Shea? Okay.
Say yes.
Thank you, Mr. Shea. Ms. Sun?
Yes.
And Dryden, yes. So the finding of facts and conclusions of law are approved. Thank you very much. All right, we have one item left on the agenda, and that's to approve the minutes from your June 24th meeting. So if you would look at those, please.
I reviewed these, I reviewed them, I make a motion to approve.
Okay, Mr. Shea makes the motion to approve. Do I hear a second?
1 second.
Sun second. Okay, Mr. Williamson,
Williamson, yes.
Ms. Sun,
Yes.
Mr. Shea,
Say yes.
and Dryden, yes. All right, thank you. Those minutes have been approved. Well, that concludes our business for today. Thank you for joining us.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Just giving you guys a heads up,